So you're manifesting, visualizing, or affirming to create the life that you want. And you're feeling good, you're feeling aligned, but all of a sudden something happens in your physical reality that triggers you. It causes you to feel frustrated, it causes you to feel annoyed. But what I don't want for you is to fall into the trap of thinking that whenever you're triggered, that it means your manifestation is ruined or that you're not manifesting properly. Because the truth is, your triggers are not pushing you away from your desired reality. Your triggers are actually trying to help you manifest by pulling you towards it. Because your triggers are just showing you exactly which parts of you that you need to let go of that don't belong in your desired reality. And this is exactly why triggers are necessary for your growth and expansion. And once you iron out each of these wrinkles in your alignment, you naturally stand in the energy of your desired self and therefore naturally manifest and materialize your desired reality. See, the thing is, whenever you're triggered, you're actually presented with two paths. One path is you spiraling back into the old self, and the other path is you using it to move one step closer to your desired reality. Now, I want you to understand that no matter how bad a circumstance may feel to you or appear to be to you, you always have the power to decide which path to take. Your triggers will only remain triggers to you if you do not learn how to walk the path of growth that is available to you and the path that your trigger wants for you to take. Because you have to understand that your triggers are never just happening to you. Your triggers are always happening for you. And this is exactly what I teach my clients and my members in my private community, to permanently change the way they see triggers so that it stops affecting them in a negative way, and then how to use those triggers to their advantage, to use them as stepping stones to manifest and materialize results in their reality even faster. And that's exactly what I'm going to share with you in this video. Now, I've got my notes here on my iPad with me because there's a lot of crucial information to go through in this video, and I don't want to miss any of it, right? I just want to make sure that you squeeze as much value as possible out of this video, right? So let's get into it. The first thing that I want to touch on, the first thing that I want you to understand is that your triggers are not ruining your manifestation. I repeat, your triggers are not ruining your manifestation. Your triggers are actually trying to help you manifest by showing you the parts of you that keep you tied to your old reality. So you may think right now, as most people think, that whenever something triggers you, it means you're ruining your manifestation or that you're not manifesting properly, right? So you may be trying to manifest more money in your life, more abundance in your life, but you keep encountering and facing triggers that contradict that reflect a lack of money in your life, right? And so you may begin to feel negative emotions when you're triggered. You start to feel frustration, right? Hopelessness, annoyance, lack. And then you start to get paranoid about these negative emotions and negative thoughts that you're having that you think are ruining your manifestation. And then you start scrambling and try to force yourself back into a positive state. And then what ultimately happens is you get stuck in this cycle of trying to use manifestation as a tool to force your reality to change so that circumstances stop triggering you and you can finally find peace. But that's not the way that manifestation works. Manifestation is about becoming the version of you who is no longer triggered by the same things as you because they no longer resonate with it, before even seeing anything in reality change. And that is when reality changes. And your triggers are helping you accomplish exactly that. And the reason this is because what triggers you is not the cause of the negative emotions that you feel. Your triggers are simply revealing an emotion that is already inside of you, right? So the true source of your trigger has nothing to do with anything externally. The true source of your trigger is internal. So if the negative emotion didn't already exist within you, then the circumstance wouldn't have any capacity to trigger you in the first place, right? So what you have to understand is that what you hold within colors the lens you see reality through. So if the emotions that you hold that produce thoughts and beliefs cause you to wear red colored glasses, then everything you see in your reality is going to appear red, right? And so what you're essentially doing is you're projecting the emotions that you're holding within onto your reality, and that colors the way you perceive your reality, right? So let's say, for example, if you hold a fear of, or if you hold an emotion to do with fear, and it creates a belief that everybody and everything is out to get you, then you're going to experience the world as a very fearful place that you need to protect yourself, you need to guard yourself from, that you need to close yourself off from, right? And if you hold a belief, so if you hold an emotion associated with lack, and it creates thoughts and beliefs like money is hard to make, or I'll never have enough money, then you're going to experience the world to be a place where you cannot find any opportunities to make money easily, even though there are endless ways to do so, right? And so the basic rule here is that you see what you suppress. So the trigger is only happening to you. You can only perceive something to trigger you due to the emotional pressure behind it that you're holding within. So when you unconsciously hold on to negative emotions, you're inevitably going to see and experience negative outcomes in your reality reflective of that negative emotion. So if you continue to believe your triggers to be a bad thing, then you are going to feed into them, thinking that's your only option, and you're going to react impulsively as the old self to that trigger. But what happens is when you do this, you're feeding energy into the emotion and into those undesired circumstances through your attention, right? Because where attention goes, energy flows. So by feeding your energy into the emotion, you give momentum for more of those undesired circumstances to exist in your reality. And so what actually happens is, right, when you think that it's the circumstances' fault, or circumstances just need to change in my reality so I stop feeling this way. If the emotion is within you, you are going to experience that same feeling, even if your circumstances in reality change. You're just going to experience them, or experience that emotion in different contexts and in different situations. So the same worry that you have about not having enough money at the end of the month to pay your bills, or not having enough money left over after your budget to save or invest so you can finally build wealth. If I gave you $100 million right now, you are going to feel that same worry about losing all of that money. The feeling, the emotion, feels exactly the same within your body, despite the circumstances changing completely, right? So I want you to understand that. So I'll give you an example here so that you can better understand this. Let's say, for example, someone calls you broke or someone calls you poor, right? If you hold an emotion associated with lack within you, then that comment is going to trigger you. You're going to get offended, you're going to get angry, you're going to get defensive. But if you do not hold an emotion to do with lack inside of you, and you've released it, you've purged that, and you truly, genuinely feel abundant, then that comment is not going to affect you at all. Your energy literally does not resonate with it, right? And that's all because there is no emotion, there is no wound within you to be triggered, right? And so the only difference between the version of you that gets triggered and the version of you that doesn't get triggered is that the version of you that gets triggered is holding an emotion within, a negative emotion within to do with lack, right? And so what you need to understand from this is that you are the one giving power to the circumstance to ruin your manifestation. A circumstance does not just have absolute power to sabotage your manifestation. You have the power to allow it to. So for me, I used to be very quick to anger. My core emotion was anger, right? I used to wonder why I had so many circumstances and situations that used to make me angry. And I used to wonder why my friends or the people around me didn't have as many circumstances as me to make them angry. I used to wonder, like, how is it that they're not angry? Why am I so angry? Why I have so many things to trigger me? I had to come to this realization. It wasn't until I started realizing that it wasn't the circumstances that were causing me to be angry. It was actually the fact that I was holding the negative emotion of anger within that was causing me to find things to be angry about in every single circumstance that I encountered, right? So once I came to that realization that it was me holding the anger within, essentially coloring the way that I see reality, then once I started to release that emotion, I started to chip away at it through the releasing resistance practice, I started feeling less angry, right? And now I feel extremely calm. I feel extremely relaxed in situations that you could call worse than the circumstances that I used to get angry about, right? So the learning here is that it's not about changing the circumstance so it stops triggering you, it stops making you feel angry. It's actually about letting go of the emotion and understanding that the trigger is actually trying to help you manifest by understanding which emotion you need to let go of, right? So what I want you to do moving forward is treat each trigger as a stepping stone to manifesting your desired reality. Because each trigger is offering an emotion into your conscious awareness. And once it enters your conscious awareness, you have the capacity to release that emotion and move one step closer to your desired reality, right? And the most important thing here is that you cannot change what you are not conscious of, right? If you're not aware of it, you can't change it. And that's why the triggers are so valuable. So the way I want you to see triggers moving forward is that the more triggers you face, the quicker you can actually manifest and materialize your desired reality, right? So long as you understand the approach and the perspective shift that you're learning in this video. So instead of seeing your trigger as evidence that your manifestation is failing or that is ruined, instead, I want you to take note, right? Take note of what triggered you rather than feeding into the emotion, rather than feeding into the trigger, right? And I know that being angry, it feels so addicting. It just pulls you into it, but you have to just stay aware of it, right? Take note of it as soon as you feel it and just allow it to be there, right? So you want to note down what emotion you think is causing the trigger. And what happens is when you do this, you neutralize the impact that that trigger has on you and your reality, right? Because it's no longer running your life in the dark. It's no longer running your life in the background. You become aware of it. And once you become aware of it, then you have the capacity and you're prepared to release it. Now, the second thing that I want to touch on, the second thing that I want you to understand is that when you are triggered, you are presented with two paths. You are presented with a path of growth, and you are also presented with a path of spiraling back to the old self. So your triggers can only sabotage and ruin your manifestation if you take the wrong path, if you decide to take the path of spiraling back to the old self, because that's what feels comfortable to you. So you might think, and how most people think, is that once you're triggered, it automatically means that you're out of alignment with your desired self, right? That is automatically taking you back to your old self and you're back at square one and you have to manifest and cultivate your desired self again, right? But what you need to understand is that the trigger isn't taking you back to your old self. You are taking you back to your old self. The trigger is simply activating the emotion within you so that you have the option to decide whether you feel safe enough to advance to the next level, to advance to the next path, right? So you've been manifesting, you're doing the manifestation techniques, you've been focusing on cultivating the emotions and the state of your desired self so that you can materialize your desired reality, right? And that's good. You're walking a single path, right? But when a trigger presents itself, you meet a crossroads. So the trigger is essentially a crossroads, right? That presents you with the two paths. So you can either walk the path back to the old self that feels comfortable, or you can walk the path that takes you one step closer to your desired self, right? When you walk the path that takes you closer to your desired self, you start to become the next version of you, right? You essentially level up, right? So it's not that you instantly step into your desired self. You walk the path that allows you to step into a new self that is one step closer to your desired self, right? But you do that enough times, you naturally stand in the energy of your desired self, right? But what you need to understand here is that when you're presented with a trigger, there is never just one path that is taking you back to the old self. I know it feels like there's only one path, but there is always going to be a path of growth available to you. You just have to decide to walk that path. So, no matter how bad a circumstance may appear to be to you, you can always use it to your advantage. You can always use it as a stepping stone to manifest your desired reality even faster. Because you always have the option to become aware of the emotion that's triggering you. And you also have the option to then release that emotional pressure that is causing the trigger, right? So that then you are no longer triggered by that thing. In manifestation, I know there's a lot of toxic positivity being spread around, and a lot of people try to go into manifestation the same way I used to see people go into self-improvement, that they try to go into these, they try to use them as tools to escape their pain, to escape their current reality, right? The things they hate about themselves, the thing they hate about reality. But they expect the path to be perfect once they start to use the tools. But the path is not meant to be perfect, right? The triggers that you experience are necessary for your growth. As I said, they're necessary for your expansion because they need to happen to you for the path to advance to the next version of yourself to even open up to you in the first place. So you really need to understand that. Now, if you never reframe how you see your triggers and you never view your triggers as an opportunity for growth, then you are always going to walk the path of the old self. And when you continue to walk the path of the old self, you stay stuck as the old self, and you stay stuck creating the same old reality that you've been trying to escape. Your problems only remain problems to you because you have refused to walk the path of growth whenever it was presented to you, right? So no matter how much effort that you've been putting into manifesting, no matter how hard you've been trying to visualize or affirm and how intensely you feel the emotions, if you keep walking the path of the old self, whenever the trigger presents the opportunity to you to be able to walk the path of growth, then you are inevitably going to be triggered by the same things over and over again until you reach the end of your life, right? So what I want you to do moving forward is treat each trigger, whenever you are presented with a trigger, treat it as a crossroads, right? Where you decide what happens next. So the next time you encounter a trigger, instead of immediately reacting impulsively as the old self, take a moment to pause, right? And all you have to do here is acknowledge that there is a path for growth. So at least you don't just instantly take the path back to the old self. So you don't have to solve the situation. You don't have to solve or release the emotion right then and there. You just have to acknowledge that there is a path for growth. And when you become aware of the path of growth, then you have the ability to walk that path. Now, the third and the last thing that I want to talk to you about, and the thing that I want you to understand, is that your triggers are your instruction manual to your desired self, to your desired reality. Now, what you have to understand here, and this may be difficult to believe, but your desired self is already within you. See, you may currently think, and the way that most people think, is that the gap between your current self and your desired self will only close if you have the things in reality to prove to you that it's closing, right? So that's why you think to yourself, once I hit 10K a month, then I'll finally feel wealthy. I'll finally be that version of myself. Once I finally have that nice car, then I'll be confident. Then I'll finally be able to talk to the girls or whoever once they see me driving that nice car, and then I can approach them confidently because I know how much money I got, right? So you're doing everything you can to avoid your triggers on your manifestation journey, right? And you're essentially saying to yourself, well, once my reality is perfect, then nothing will affect me. But if in manifestation you have to embody your desired self before reality even changes, then you're never going to materialize your desired reality, right? You're essentially going about manifestation backwards, right? And it's understandable because it's how a lot of people in this manifestation space teach it, right? They teach you to run away from the parts of you that you don't want to face, right? They teach you to use circumstances and things that you have in your reality as a crutch for the parts of you that you're afraid to acknowledge, right? So what is actually happening here? Well, the gap between your current self and your desired self has nothing to do with the things that they have in physical reality. The difference is the emotions that they hold within. That's why when you do your visualizations, right? Yes, you do see the material things in your visualizations, but the purpose of them is to ignite and instill certain emotions within you, because that's all you truly want. You don't want the thing in physical reality. Yeah, cool, it would be nice to have, but you want the feeling. You want to feel that way, right? So if I just gave you your desired reality right now and said, well, you're going to feel the same low confidence, you're going to feel lack, you're going to feel constant worry about losing all the money, right? You're constantly going to be stressed. You're going to be like, you're going to think about it. You're going to be like, I don't know if I want that, right? But what you need to understand here, as I said, your desired self is already within you. You don't need anything outside of you. You don't need anything external to give you more of your desired self. All the qualities that you seek, feeling abundant, feeling confident, right? All of those emotions you want to feel, they are already inside of you. Your desired self is who you already are underneath all of these emotions that you're suppressing. And once you release all of these emotions, then you naturally rise to the consciousness, you naturally rise to the frequency of your desired self, and therefore naturally materialize your desired reality. So it's like you're underwater and you're supposed to be naturally buoyant, meaning that you're supposed to naturally rise to the surface. But what's happening here is that you're trying to swim to the surface. You're trying to reach the surface, right? You're trying to reach a higher level of consciousness. You're trying to reach a higher frequency. But you're unconsciously carrying these anchors that are keeping you tied to the bottom of the ocean and are weighing you down, right? Stopping you from reaching the surface. And these anchors are the emotions that you're holding onto, right? So you're trying to force your manifestation. You're trying to force things to materialize in your reality while carrying these anchors. But these anchors don't belong at the top of the ocean. The anchors belong at the bottom of the ocean, right? You cannot sit in two chairs at once. You're either at the bottom of the ocean or you're rising or you're already at the surface, right? You can't bring the parts of you that belong at the bottom of the ocean to the surface. It doesn't work that way. And so all you have to do is simply let go of each anchor so that you naturally rise to the surface, right? It's as simple as that. You don't have to cultivate or force yourself to cultivate your desired emotions every single morning just for you to slip back into the old self throughout the day, because you haven't even become aware of these emotions causing you to slip back to the old self, right? Just let go of them and your alignment becomes so effortless. So what you need to understand is that every trigger shines a light on an aspect of you that is running in the dark. So as we now understand, each trigger reveals an emotion that exists within you that you need to let go of. So that means the trigger is revealing the next step for you to take, the next anchor that you need to let go of to align one step closer to your desired self and therefore your desired reality. And that's why I say triggers are literally your unique instruction manual to getting to your desired reality, right? So if you continue to resist triggers and you fail to become aware of the emotional pressure underneath it, and you continue to blame your circumstances, you are going to miss an extremely valuable lesson that is going to be crucial for your growth, right? And what's going to happen is you're going to continue carrying your old self into new circumstances. And so you're going to feel the exact same for the rest of your life, no matter what circumstances change in your reality. As I said, you're going to feel the exact same emotions you're holding within, just in different contexts and situations, right? So once you take this approach of releasing resistance and you just release a single layer of emotions, so just a single emotion, it changes the trajectory of the rest of your life for the better. Because a single emotion produces thoughts and beliefs resonant with that emotion or reflective of that emotion. And by releasing the emotion, you essentially eliminate the potential thousands or millions of negative thoughts and beliefs that would affect the rest of your life in a negative way. So once you release that emotion from this point, from now, essentially a whole future of negativity has just been cut off, right? Like in Loki, when they just cut the branches of timelines and stuff like that. You essentially cut that negative timeline out, right? So you're essentially cutting off all these branches, so the only timeline you're left with is your desired reality. So what I want you to do moving forward is to be grateful for every trigger that you face. Because each trigger is a blessing from the universe, it's a blessing from the God self within you to move forward in your journey. So what I want you to do is, the next time you're triggered, ask yourself, what is the next emotion this trigger wants me to release? And that is essentially the stepping stone to move one step closer to your desired reality. So what you want to do is you want to take note of what the emotion feels like in your body. Because all an emotion is a bodily sensation that we give a label to. The label itself doesn't really matter. It's the feeling inside the body that is producing these negative thoughts, negative beliefs, and coloring the way that we see reality. So once we can get rid of that sensation, it changes the way you see reality, right? You no longer are triggered by the same things. So once you release each layer one by one, you reveal the deeper layers underneath, right? And you can release these emotions, you can release these layers using something I call the releasing resistance practice, which is what I teach my clients and my members in my private community, right? So if that's something if this sounds like something you need and something that you're interested in, you can click the link in the description to join the community, and you can learn exactly how to do that step by step. So I'm sure that would be extremely valuable for you. Now, what you have to understand about being triggered, and I actually learned something very valuable about this watching The Legend of Korra. I don't know if you guys have seen Avatar: The Last Airbender, one of the best shows of all time. I started watching The Legend of Korra, which I've seen like a decade ago. But Aang said something in The Legend of Korra that actually stuck with me. And he said, when we hit our lowest point, we are open to the greatest change. Right? So if you connect that lowest point to being triggered, because when you're triggered, you feel like you're out of alignment, right? You start feeling negative. You have all these negative emotions. At the point you are triggered, you are open to the greatest change. But you have to open yourself up to be open to that change. So as you release these layers one by one, you begin to automatically stand in the energy of your desired self without having to force that alignment. You don't have to force your manifestation. You don't have to set an alarm every single hour to remind yourself to embody your desired state. It becomes your natural default state. So in understanding all of this, your triggers were never meant to ruin or sabotage your manifestation. Your triggers, all this time, have been trying to guide you towards your desired reality. So you don't need to worry about whether you're capable of becoming your desired self or whether you're even worthy of having your desired reality. Because everything you need is already within you to make your desired reality happen for you, right? So once you let go of the emotions causing you to feel triggered, as I said, you naturally stand in the energy of your desired self. And when you stand in the energy of your desired self, you perceive reality completely differently. You're no longer seeing red all over your reality. You're seeing reality the way you want to see it. And all of a sudden, you see all these opportunities for your business to become successful. You see all these opportunities to materialize more money, right? And do it easily. And ultimately, reality rearranges to reflect the version of you that you have now become. Not because of you trying to force yourself to be that version of you, but because you had the courage to face all of the darkest parts of you that were creating negative, undesired outcomes in your experience of reality, that you had the courage to face and finally let go of, so you could become the version of yourself you are always destined to be. So if you enjoyed this video and it sounds like something that you want to dive deeper into, you can get access to step-by-step reality creation resources in my private community, Reality Benders, which will also help you to release all the resistance and the emotions that keeps you tied to the old reality so that you can automatically step into a new reality and create your new reality through alignment and not force, right? So if that's something you're interested in, the link is in the description for you to join. Now, with that being said, I hope you guys enjoyed this video. I'll leave another video here that I think will be very valuable for you, and I'll see you guys in the next video.